Another YouTube video. It is your boy, the Hungry Hornet. Always hungry, always horneting. So today's video, bit of a news story. I've been trying to do a few more news stories ready for the channel. Today's news story is actually from the world of driving in Northern Ireland. I did a bit of research. I saw this article this morning and I saw that Northern Ireland got quite strict rules for new drivers, including having to display something called R plates for recently passed, I guess, for like 12 months. Well, they've put in some new rules now coming from October this year, and basically it means that there's going to be restrictions, like graduated driver restrictions basically. And so the idea is a bit like motorcycles really. It's actually quite cool to read. Basically, from now on, learner drivers that age between 17 I believe and 23 I think it is, will basically be restricted in what they can do. So they can be restricted with who they can carry as passengers during like sort of nighttime hours. So I think they're going to be restricted to one passenger between, like, you know, 2300 or whatever and 0600 I believe it is. So now obviously this is all just off the fly. I haven't got any, you know, I'm riding a motorcycle while talking, you know, I don't have any notes or anything, so this may be slightly verbatim, not very verbatim if you like, be slightly inaccurate, but the idea is basically there's going to be some changes to the way driving, you know, drivers can sort of progress in Ireland, Northern Ireland, and how they can basically what they can and can't do. Now I think this is a real good step in the right direction, especially because coming from a motorcycle, as you all know, the Hungry Hornet only has a license for a motorcycle, so I'm only allowed to ride motorcycles when I have a full license. I took that license when I was 30 odd years old, so I was fine. I had to do something called direct access, but before then, you know, if you're a 17-year-old lad or ladette and you want to ride a motorcycle, you have to go through hoops. So I think it's a good going in the right direction. I think motorcycles are heavily restricted for all age groups and stuff, so I think it's about time that, you know, cars are also restricted. I think that, you know, there's nothing to say about like engine size, power, anything like that, but I know that the UK government is looking at reforming certain things, and the fact that Northern Ireland are doing this first means that they're more in line with the rest of Europe. So it's a really good idea, I think, because it helps. You know, it just restrictions obviously aren't a good thing. I know what you're all thinking and what you're all saying is, like, you know, coming from the world of motorcycles, none of us like the motorcycle restrictions that are in place for, like, you know, power and all that sort of power to weight ratio, A1s, A2s, you know, A class motorcycle license, etc, etc. But let's not kid ourselves. Those restrictions are in place for safety, and it's very windy, but those restrictions are in place for safety and they're here to help us, you know, to keep us motorcyclists alive. Now when you're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, even 24, I'd say 25, 26, you kind of have this invincibility cloak where you think you're untouchable, you know, and that's why these are in place, because it stops you from, you know, buying a silly machine and being a silly boy or girl on it, you know. I think obviously, you know, young people are responsible for a lot of car accidents, speeding, you know, and just generally, you just did that recent news story about the teenagers that were in that car that crashed head on with a taxi driver up country. I mean, that's f***ing horrible, isn't it? You know, killed all four, or like 5 people were killed in that crash, that smash, due to the incompetence of one person. So it happens. It's a horrible side of oh my god, it's a horrible side of driving, I'd say. The roads, you know, it's a lot of inexperienced people out there. Now my son, he's 8 years old, and it's mad to think he's a young lad, you know, he's 8 years old at the end of the month, end of February, near the end of February. It's mad to think that in that, you know, as little as 9 years time, he's going to be legally able to drive a car, pass a test, drive a car, and go anywhere he fucking wants. It's mad. But the guy, all he does is say 6'7" all the time right now. 6'7" and fucking, I don't know, like, you know, memes and shit. This is a kid, yeah? Young lad. In 9 short years time, he is going to be driving. He could be driving. That's a scary thought. He could also be riding a motorcycle. Now if he's riding a motorcycle, he'll be on L plates, he'll be restricted, he can't go on the motorway, all that sort of stuff. So there's a little bit of like leeway there, you know, unless he takes his A1. So yeah, it's like there's a hoop that he's got to go through, a few hoops. Teenagers are lazy, they don't know how to do it. So these new driving laws put in place are going to help deter people from making silly mistakes and silly, you know, people, you know, jumping into things too quickly. Now, for instance, apparently there's going to be a new law where, you know, I don't know if it's new, but the Northern Ireland are introducing the fact that you cannot take your driving test 6 months within being issued your provisional driving license. So that's interesting. Does that, you know, that basically means in their head they're like, well, you know, you've only been serious about learning how to drive for 6 months, so you can't, you know, you cannot learn how to drive, you cannot pass your driving test, etc, etc. The limit on how many people, you know, you can carry in your car at a certain age during certain hours, it's a good thing, you know. As a 17-year-old boy or girl, you're going to be limited to who you can carry on a motorcycle. So it's a little bit of parity, isn't it? And I think parity is a good thing when it comes to things like this. Parity isn't going to not help, is it? It's going to be a good thing. I know it's not going to be a popular decision. You know, I know that a lot of people might think that it's bullshit, you know, like we live in some sort of nanny state where the government are, you know, like restricting too much. But I do honestly think the older I get, the more I understand why these laws are put in place. You know, they're not there to hinder you, they're there to protect you. And you know, if I was 17 years old and I could have full access to this bike that I've got right now, a full license, 17, I could ride this 750 Hornet anywhere I wanted, I would have killed myself by the time I'm 19 easily. But you know, it's a bloody struggle keeping yourself alive on a motorbike as an experienced rider that isn't doing wheelies and shit. But I used to be an absolute menace to society when I was younger, so I understand the fact that restrictions are coming in to car drivers in Northern Ireland is a good thing. I do hope we see those sorts of restrictions here, I really do. The fact that I mean I work with someone that, you know, he's like 18 years old, he's got like a 2-litre car. It's like, how the hell if you got that? So if you can afford, so if you, the only restriction to car driving is your wallet, really, the way I look at it. That's the only restriction that exists, it's your wallet, because everything else is pretty much unrestricted. As soon as you pass your car test, that's it. You can buy a Ferrari, you can do this, you can do that, you can do whatever you want. Congratulations, you're a car driver. You're seen as, you know, you drive a van, start a business with a van, you know, all that sort of shit. It's like, you know, there's a car license here in the UK is like the equivalent of winning the lottery. You're basically allowed to do what you want, you know. The only thing that will restrict you is your wallet. How much can you afford to pay for insurance if you're 17 or 18? Or how much can your dad afford, or your mum afford to pay for insurance from bank of mum and dad? There's all these sort of things that, you know, don't even come into question for a motorcycle. I know for a fact a lad that I know, he wanted to get a CBR 125R, and he was quoted £7 a year insurance on it for a 125. So, you know, it's silly really. He still ended up getting it because he's minted. So there's a lot of that, you know. It's all about your wallet. How much can you afford? That's the only restriction really when it comes to cars. Motorcycles, it's the same really, you know. If you're prepared to spend the money, you know, and the insurance think that you're a bit of an ass for buying, you know, a Ducati Panigale at 24, and they might ask you to pay 10 grand a year for it, you know. And if you're willing to do it, you're willing to do it. But there's more restrictions to motorcycling. It's harder to get into, and I think car driving needs to be harder to get into as well, because you need to be of the right mindset. Now if you're not willing to jump through the hoops, not willing to do your, you know, to display your plates for a year, and you know, and you're gutted because you can only carry one passenger, etc. I think that's a good thing. It means it gets rid of the riffraff, doesn't it? Gets rid of the riffraff. We don't need you on the roads, you know. If all you want to do is get from A to B, and you know, this doesn't affect you, you know. If you're going to be antisocial, it will, because you'll be restricted on what hours you can drive your car, which I think is a little bit mad. what they're going to do. Like, they're going to have age-related tests at the roadside. Oh, son, you say you're 25. Who's the Prime Minister in 2008? I don't know, I wasn't born. Correct. You may move on. Well, tell me what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you guys for more restrictions? Or do you think the nanny state needs to give up? Do you want to see drivers have to go through the same horse that you have to go through as a motorcyclist? Do you think there should be 2 practical tests? I do. Do you think there should be a Mod 1, Mod 2 for cars? I do. Do you think they should also have to do a CVT? I do. Do you think they should have to ride a motorcycle first? I do. They do that in France, and why not do it here? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Until the next time, it's been windy. Get over. I've been angry on it. You've been incredible. Peace.